Hello and welcome to the Healing Insight Podcast, episode 23, with me, Sarah Hunt.
And me, Jez Hunt.
Hello, and here we are again. Not quite so hot as the last time we were chatting together, Jay, is it?
Mm-hmm.
But still good summer weather, or certainly where I am anyway.
Yeah, no, it's good here too. It's a little bit muggy, but it's okay. It's typical British summer weather, I suppose.
Yeah, changeable.
Changeable.
Changeable. So today we thought we'd look at persistence.
Persistence.
Um, so persistence. What does persistence mean to you, Jay?
I do love the way that if you're not sure where to start with a topic, it's the opening phrase. And listeners, listen back to the beginning of various episodes, and you will hear, we're going to talk about this today. And what does that mean to you then, Jay? Well, you're consistent with your persistence with things. Persistence to me is not giving up too soon with something. So let me try and expand on that a little bit. So we can have plans. We can plan things in our life. We can have ideas. We can have dreams. We can have goals. We can have things we aspire to achieve. And often, if we're not careful, we can try something. And if it doesn't work out straight away, if we don't get our goals straight away, then we can stop doing it. So if we look at New Year's resolutions, the average New Year's resolution, people don't get past the 15th of January, 2 weeks. That's it. And they give up. And in a lot of cases, they give up too soon. If I use a marketing analogy, even going back 20 odd years ago, when we're doing direct mail, so we used to post stuff to people. It was awesome. But, even then it was recognized you needed 14 touches before you were likely to get an engagement with a potential client. And yet lots of businesses, small businesses, even nowadays, give up after 3 or 4 attempts to get in touch with somebody. So persistence to me, is about the following through on something to achieve the end result and not giving up too early. There is a caveat here as well, in that we've got to be persistent with the right things and not putting a lot of effort into something that's not going to work. So interestingly, part of this is understanding or acknowledging or realizing when you're at that point of, am I being persistent? And is this something that's actually going to work? I just need to work longer at it. Or am I, to coin a phrase, barking up the wrong tree?
Yeah, and this is where it's really important to be working with your intuition and tuned into your intuition, isn't it? Because when we're tuned into our intuition and we're being persistent with something, if we keep checking in with our intuition, is this still right for me? Am I heading in the right direction? Am I in the flow of things? Or am I getting a lot of resistance? Then your intuition will give you a clue as to whether it's something you need to persevere with or whether it's something that you need to reevaluate. And it may be that you are heading in the right direction, but not quite, if that makes sense, in that you need to make some subtle changes, which will then allow things to flow a bit more to help you to get where you need to be.
Yeah, if we take an everyday analogy, so let's say we're going from Bedford to Edinburgh. Okay, so we know that that's our destination, that we know that's where we're going to go. And we start off and maybe we use the sat nav and maybe we plan it by maps for us older people. But we know, we start heading in the right direction, and then we find there's roadworks and the road's blocked and we get detoured off. Well, we still know we need to get to Edinburgh, so we follow the detour. So we end up going off track of our original plan, but we can get round it and we head back, and then we get stuck again in more roadworks, or there's something, all these things can come up, yet we still know that we want to get to Edinburgh. So we are persistent to do that despite the problems that are coming up.
Yeah.
If we were driving to Edinburgh and suddenly we hit a big chasm like the Grand Canyon that suddenly appeared going across the country, which you just can't drive across, there's no routes down or anything like that, then trying to be persistent in a car to get across that chasm, it's not going to happen. It's not, you're barking up the wrong tree. You're trying to do something that isn't possible. Now, that doesn't mean you can't get to Edinburgh, because you could possibly, depending on circumstances, find a footpath down, walk along the bottom and climb up the other side. So it's a balance of what you're trying to achieve and being persistent with something, rather than. So if you've got a need to get to Edinburgh, say a loved one is in hospital there and you absolutely have to get there, then you will find a way through and you will get there.
Yeah.
But if it's something that you're just doing because you want to do it, maybe that's the universe telling you that actually you shouldn't be doing this. So
yeah, well, it's not the right time, or
not the right time, not the right thing.
Doing at all. Yeah, and this is where it's really important, isn't it, to be reevaluating things regularly to see that you are heading in the right direction, and where it's so important to be listening to yourself, to your intuition, and allowing your intuition to guide you. Because usually, if you listen to your intuition, there'll be synchronicities that will point you in the right direction. So you might be going somewhere and the roadworks come up, but you'll get this sense of, I need to turn off here. And then, and I've certainly done that in my sales jobs years ago, not realizing what I was doing. I've come off the motorway earlier than perhaps I would normally have done, had the radio on to hear that there was an accident, and I would have got stuck in the traffic if I hadn't come off and done a detour around. So it's the same kind of scenario, that we need to be reevaluating things. We need to be listening to ourselves to make sure that we are doing what's right for us.
Yeah, and that's an interesting, I like that metaphor. It's an interesting one, because I've done the opposite, where my gut told me to come off the motorway early, and I was like, no, it'll be fine, and then stuck in traffic for 2.5 hours. So I went against my intuition.
Yeah, I think as well, there's a lot of us that are guilty of that at various times, where ego takes over, and we aren't tuned into ourselves properly, and the head takes over, and you find yourself in that kind of situation. And I've certainly done it at various times as well. But when you can be more tuned into yourself, it does actually help you. And also it'll give you that sense as well of, is this worth putting the energy into? Do I need to persist at this? Or have I learned what I need to from this part of the journey with whatever it is you're doing? And is it time now to be looking at a slightly different direction, or a completely new direction?
Yeah. Look at how many people stay in jobs that they hate doing. They might have loved it to begin with, but if you're not in love with what you're doing, then that to me is a big indicator of you need to change. You need to change your job, or whatever it is. So, but how many people stay persistent in, well, I've been in this job for X number of years, and this is what I know, and this is what, we take the path of least resistance, which I think is why we're not persistent enough. I mean, there's other things in here as well. Maybe it's the fear of rejection in some circumstances. So in a sales environment, for example, it comes up a lot with my clients, where they won't ask for a sale because the fear actually underneath it is the fear of being told no. So they're not persistent. That a no typically means that no to your offer right now. It's not right for me right now. It doesn't mean ever. It just means not right now. But you can then be persistent in keeping in touch with these people that you're developing a relationship with. Even if they don't buy from you today, doesn't mean that you're never going to sell to them. It just means that it's not, you know this from your sales days.
I know this from my own sales experience. Yes, definitely. You know? And I always developed relationships with customers who were who always bought competitor products. But if something happened and the competitor couldn't provide them with what they normally had, they always were like, oh, we'll get in touch with Sarah. Hopefully she can help us out. So I was persistent in that. I made sure that I'd got good relationships, even with those that didn't normally buy the products I was selling, so that if an opportunity arose, if something happened and they needed to look at something different for some reason, their first thought would be to try and see if I could help them before they went looking elsewhere.
Yeah, so that's a not giving up. So that to me is persistence. That's, you know, it's just that belief that in this case, the products that we sell are, you know, I believe in the products that we sell. I believe they're good at what they do. They're a good value. They're good value. So for the price, etc., I believe in them. So it's my belief that other people will benefit from that. So it's being persistent in that, regardless of whether they say yes or no. On the flip side of that, I think another word that comes to mind in this arena is tenacity.
Yeah.
And to me, tenacity is kind of going the other way. It's going persistent. This is just my way of describing it, so just bear with me. Being persistent, but to the point of obsession, almost. To me, tenacity conjures up this image of not letting go of something regardless of what's happening. And that's not what we're talking about with persistence, because as you've said, it's about connecting to our intuition, going with the flow. If there's a lot of resistance there, then maybe it's something we shouldn't be doing. We're not meant to be doing. It's not right for us to be doing it right now. Those sorts of things. So I think, you know, we just need to be aware that we're not pushing something for the sake of pushing it. So like you said before, you know, are we an ego or are we in our hearts?
Yeah, absolutely. Tenacity, to me, is linked to the determination to continue what you're doing. So to me, tenacity and perseverance kind of link together.
Yeah.
Because to be able to persevere, you need that determination to actually achieve what you want to achieve.
Yes, no, I agree. They're definitely linked, but I'm going to be naughty and I'm going to have a quick look at what the dictionary says.
Sorry, listeners, we're just waiting.
Yeah. Just bear with.
Tenacity online.
So tenacity. So the quality of being tenacious or of holding fast. Persistence. So tenacity is persistence. The quality of retaining something. The quality or property of holding together firmly. Not sure. Anyway, so in terms of what we're talking about, the quality of being tenacious or of sticking with something, holding fast, sticking with it, persistence. So if we look up persistence, the act or fact of persisting, the quality of being persistent, continuous existence or occurrence, the continuance of an effect after its cause is removed. Okay. So according to, this is just dictionary.com. So according to dictionary.com, persistence is part of tenacity, but tenacity isn't part of persistence.
That puts a new light on things then, doesn't it?
Or does it?
Or does it?
Or does it? What do you think, listeners? Are you persistent or are you tenacious?
Or are you a bit of both?
Well, if you apparently if you're tenacious, then you are persistent.
Yes. Well, yes, indeed. Yeah.
That's interesting. And this one of the things, fascinating things. Sorry, sidebar. One of the fascinating things about the English language is that we can have so many different words that mean the same thing or mean very similar, and yet they're not the same thing.
Yeah, it's very true.
Anyway, that's a by the by. So, okay. So in that case, I will go with persistence or tenacity is about not giving up on what you're trying to achieve. I still hold that caveat of make sure that we are tuned into our intuition and we're following the right thing. We're not just doing something, we're not just not letting go of something and being persistent or tenacious with something because we believe it to be right and we're in our heads, because that doesn't mean that it is right.
Yeah, absolutely. It does really come back to dropping into your heart center and make sure that it is linked to what will make you feel happy, what you will love, because there's no point in persisting with something that isn't going to make you happy. And that just leads to all sorts of other issues, doesn't it? So we need to be persistent with things that make us feel happy, and we need to be tuning into ourselves regularly. Does this still make me happy? Do I still need to be going down this path? Does this still feel right for me? And I think it's very easy to forget to check in with ourselves and make sure that it feels right.
Yeah.
And sometimes as well, and I know I've been guilty of this, is we'll get the feeling about something, a bit like you with your gut feeling on the motorway, and we won't listen. And so then we end up with loads of resistance because actually we've not listened to the fact that our soul, our intuition is telling us that actually you don't need to do this anymore.
Yeah.
You've learned what you need to learn, and it's time to change direction, or it's time to look at something else, or whatever it might be. So it's really important to be tuning into ourselves, listening to what feels right for ourselves, as we move forward, so that we stay in a state of flow. And when we stay in a state of flow, we'll end up with persistence and tenacity. We will get to where we feel we need to be, but of course our destination needs to be coming from the heart as well. And we also need to remember that it's not necessarily the destination that's important, but it's the journey.
Yeah.
And it's the journey where we'll learn things about ourselves, we'll come to great understanding of ourselves, and that's a real important part of our journey of discovery that we're on when we're on Earth.
Yeah. I mean, me choosing Edinburgh just because I fancy going to Edinburgh doesn't mean that that's where I need to go if I'm supposed to be going to Birmingham.
Absolutely. Yeah, yeah. And it is about tuning into, even down to going away on holiday. What feels right? Where do I need to be? Where do I need to go and explore? And some people might find that an interesting way to look at things, but I know of someone who always checks with herself um, the dates that she actually needs to be away. Is this the right dates for me to actually be away? And have I chosen the right place to go to? And certainly, I've experienced situations where I've found myself suddenly in a place that I didn't expect to be in, and then just got a sense of deja vu. Perhaps I've kind of, I don't know, just got a sense of knowing that place from somewhere else, or I've bumped into somebody that I wasn't expecting to see, but I needed to connect with. There's all sorts of reasons for it. And when you listen to your intuition, it will guide you to where you need to be. Um, but if you end up in your head, you can end up persisting to a point where you actually push yourself off track.
Yeah. Funny enough, with holidays, I've done holidays with other people where it was kind of like, well, we want to go there. I don't really want to go there, but we can go there. and then it's been not necessarily the best holiday ever. So yeah, I think that's an interesting. I mean, I've not thought of it like that. I mean, I tend to, with my holidays, I tend to go with what I feel anyway. I tend to, yeah, I fancy that. Sounds good. We'll go there.
But then you're using your intuition without realizing using your intuition, aren't you? Because you're feeling it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and I
that
hadn't.
feels good. I'll go there.
It's interesting, this conversation, because I hadn't thought of it in that way. I mean, I don't
Yeah.
intentionally feel where I need to go on holiday. It's just, no, I don't fancy that. But
Yeah, I think that then just highlights that, a lot of people use their intuition without realizing that they're using their intuition, because they'll go, no, that doesn't feel right to me, and not realizing what they're actually doing, but they are tuning into themselves, and they are listening to what feels right for them.
okay, so let's just dive a little bit deeper into this for a second. So if right, let's say I want to go to Cornwall. As you know, I love Cornwall, as you do.
As I do, yeah.
So let's say I wanted to go to Cornwall, but I heard from somebody that they'd just come back from Cornwall. Oh, it was horrific. The prices were horrible. The blah blah blah. The lots of traffic, the queues, and then
That's normal, isn't it?
well, okay, yes, it is for Cornwall in the summer, particularly peak times. But then is it intuition if I decide not to go, or have I gone into my head and I'm actually taking on board what they're saying,
Yeah.
which is now influencing where I'm going? So it is very, you'd need to be very careful or very clear in your own, I was going to say in your own mind, in your own heart, that you are connecting to your intuition and going from what you feel is right, not. So ask that question now. Am I being influenced, or am I taking what someone else has said, or am I being influenced in some way? So am I in my head, or am I actually saying, no, I'm not going to go to Cornwall this year because it doesn't feel right, or no, because the traffic's going to be really bad because XYZ person said it?
Yeah, absolutely. And just because that's their experience doesn't mean to say that it's going to be your experience, especially if you're tuned into yourself and the universe. You can put out that you're going to have a really happy holiday, that there'll be an easy journey down there. And when you put out positive intentions like that, the universe will work with you to help create that for you, so that you have a very different experience to the other person. But I just want to catch on what you were saying about whether you're being influenced by somebody else, and I do feel that sometimes people end up staying in jobs because their partner's like, well, no, you can't leave. You need to stick at it. And I've heard that before with people. You need to stick at it. You need to persevere. You need to persist. When actually the person may actually be feeling, this just isn't right for me, and I need to walk away from it. But you can end up in your head because someone else is telling you that you need to do this, when actually deep down inside it's not right for you. So outside influences can affect how persistent you are with something, and in both directions really, either going along the road of too persistent, or not persistent enough because you're not listening to yourself properly.
Well, it also happens in relationships. I mean, how many? I certainly have stayed in relationships longer than I should have done. Well, I knew that I should have left earlier than I did, but I persisted. But
Yeah.
you know, yeah. So we
And again,
know,
that can be outside influences, can't it?
can
It's
be.
we've got to stay together for the children. We've got to stay together for whatever reason it is, rather than looking at, is this still right for me? Is this still right for you? Is this, something that we can work through together, and be persistent to create a better relationship? Or is this something where we need to say, actually, we've tried our best, and now it's time to walk away? So yeah, it happens in all sorts of situations in life, doesn't it?
Yeah, yeah. Uh,
So, an interesting topic again. Um, Persistence and tenacity, I do feel, are important in our lives, but it's like you said at the start, it's that it's not taking it. too far. It's reassessing as you go through life, and just making sure that your persistence is a good use of your energy, and that you're not actually wasting energy and putting energy into something that actually isn't right for you. It's remembering to stay in your heart and listen to your heart rather than your head, so that everything flows rather than getting loads of resistance.
Yeah, and I think that's a key point, is to keep just check in on yourself regularly, whether it's a short term goal or aim of yours, or whether it's a 5 year or 10 year plan. You know, I want to go to Edinburgh so I can map it out, but every so often along that route, do I still want to go to Edinburgh? Is Edinburgh still the right destination, or has something happened that means actually I want to now turn off and head towards Birmingham or
Home.
Manchester or Glasgow or I don't know, wherever, or Southampton? You know, I mean, it could be a complete opposite direction. So
Yeah.
checking in every so often, and even if you're just doing goal setting, just checking in, and is this still a valid goal? Is it still the best use of my energy, like you said? But is it still the thing that I'm meant to have, the thing that I'm meant to be moving towards?
Yeah. And does it make me feel happy?
Exactly. Yeah,
At the
yeah,
end of the day, does it make you feel happy? If it does, if you get excited about it, if you feel passionate about whatever it happens to be, then you're heading in the right direction. But if you don't get those kind of feelings, then maybe you need to be questioning what it is that you're doing, and whether you're heading in the right direction, and whether you're being too persistent in something that perhaps is no longer right for you. And that doesn't mean to say that when you started on that journey it wasn't right at the start,
yeah,
but things change. You make decisions, you make choices, that changes things, and so that can actually the change what you had originally felt was right for you. Um, so this is where we need to be using our perception as well, to make sure that we still have the right perception of what it is we want to achieve. But most of all, feeling it. Does it feel right? Does it feel right to persist with this? Does it feel right to continue in this way, or is it time to look at things from a slightly different angle?
yeah. And just to catch another thing that you just said, it's also sometimes we start something because it feels right, and we do that because there's a lesson to learn.
Yeah,
So it might be right when you start because you need to learn that lesson, but once you've learned that lesson, it may no longer be right, because the whole purpose of it was to teach you that lesson, for you to learn
absolutely.
that lesson.
And so once you've learned the lesson, there's no point in persisting in that same direction, is there? It's time to, and this is why checking in with
Yeah,
yourself is so important, because sometimes we learn lessons not necessarily on a really conscious level. We might learn it on a subconscious level. You know, we take the stuff on board and we do things slightly differently than we might have done previously. And that's the lesson learned. And so it may not flag up straight in our face that we've just learned the lesson that we needed to by going in that direction. But when you're checking in with yourself and asking, does this still feel right? Does this still feel like it's making me happy? Does it feel that I need to continue with this? Then we're tuning in and listening to what's right for us, and making sure that we make the changes if we need to, rather than just continuing in the same vein, almost with tunnel vision, with blinkers on.
yeah,
And I've certainly come across people that have done that. The blinkers are on. They're like, there's my destination. That's the only way I can possibly get to it. Instead of taking the blinkers off and actually going, oh, actually, maybe I need to look around and look outside of what I originally felt was the right thing for me, because things have changed.
yeah. Awesome.
Fantastic. Another interesting topic.
Indeed.
Um, yeah, it's nice to explore things, isn't it? And um, get some new understanding on things as well.
Yeah. Looking at things, like I say, take the blinkers off and looking at things from a different perspective. And, there are more than one way of doing things,
Absolutely.
So just be open. Go within, be open to possibilities.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Excellent.
Super. Thank you very much, Jay, for your time. It's
That's
really
okay.
good to catch up with you. Good to catch up with all of the listeners. And until next time, it's goodbye from me.
And it's goodbye from him.